We've got 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets, you guys. It is time for another premiere video of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Hello, this is Reganelite here, and in this video I'm going to be covering 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets. This is not a live stream, this is a premiere video being recorded on Friday the 7th of November 2025 at 13:51 UK time, just for reference. We're covering a story from The Guardian, from Sky News, from BBC News, The Independent, and we'll have one funny video in between, followed by a story from the iPaper, The Times, and then Byline Times, guys. So let's dive straight into these news, and I'll share my thoughts as we go along with them all. Links for all the articles will be in description as well, just for reference. The first one here is flags and Christian nationalist slogans have been featuring in soaring attacks on UK mosques. So between July and October 2025, 25 buildings were targeted in 27 attacks, according to the British Muslim Trust here. There is this real emphasis from people on the far right to try and identify themselves as Christians, or coming down, trying to break down this analogy that Britain is a pure Christian country, and that there is some kind of invasion by other entities within the UK, which is in England specifically, I would say, which is just simply not true. Britain has always been, for a long time, a multiculturalism country with many different people from different backgrounds of cultures and religion, nationalities of all sorts. And that's what makes Great Britain, or the UK, very, very special and unique in comparison to many other nations out there. It's been very welcoming for a long time. Although that trust has been eroded, in particular in the last 15 years, I would say. In particular, that trust and erosion of unity and community has been desecrated by 14 years of Conservatives with the realm of austerity, which has broken down the communities for a long period. And then you also have, with those communities also broken down, you also have when people who are worse off, and there's been a lot of discretion of when people are being moved into different areas and whatnot. There's been questions about, oh, are these people really helping me? Are these people really want to be British, or are they there for atrocities? And the thing is one of the things that really sticks out the most is that more that is highlighted is, especially in these times, we're seeing more and more, especially of brown or black people in particular, are being highlighted more. If you are a asylum seeker, or if you're of that kind, they're much more highlighted than white people. I would say the mainstream media does try to highlight that more, or the far right, I would say, more of doing that. Certain political parties highlight this, and the likes of Twitter doesn't help as well, because Elon Musk exaggerates news more on the right than he does than actually giving it fair balance there. And it's also important to stress that Twitter is, at the end of the day, a private company. It's not publicly owned in any way, shape or form. So it's up to Elon Musk what he does on it. And if people don't like what he does, they can leave the platform. I don't like it either, but I'm not going to leave the platform because I do consider it a source of information. But platforms like that, as well as voices of influencers and politicians, are helping to fuel this divide, this so-called culture war. And we'll probably touch a little bit more on culture war later on as well, because that is one of the fundamental reasons why we are having this situation. Of course, another thing as well is obviously what's happening in Gaza. What's been happening in Gaza, yes, of course, people will say there's a ceasefire now. Well, technically there isn't, because they're still bombing at the time of this recording. And so you have this divide that's being made between Muslims and Palestinians and Israelis. There are some Jews out there who are very much in solidarity with Palestinians over what's happening and perfectly understand what is going on. And you have this creepiness of Zionism that has been crawling in, that's been influenced the minds of politics and whatnot as well, which is problematic as well. So there's a lot of factors into this. I wouldn't just say it's just one thing. There's a multitude of things that have led to so many British mosques being targeted. And it's so important that the government calls out these attacks, because yes, while of course they will call out every single atrocity done to an Israeli or a Jew here in the UK, they must make sure that they call it out in terms of Muslims, to show that they do stand with all faiths and not just one. So attacks on mosques in the UK have soared in recent months. The government's Islamophobia monitoring partner has said, with more than 40% feature incidents in featuring English or British flags and Christian nationality symbols or slogans. And that's also devaluing the flags as well, by what is the benefit of them flying the flags and whatnot in this kind of thing. They're trying to set a precedent that because they are not white, that they are not English or British in some way, shape or form, when many of them have been born here or lived here all their lives, and they're trying to paint this kind of picture that they somehow don't belong here. And it's just like, well, they've been here as long as some of you have, but yeah, I know it's a terrible situation. So in the past 3 months, a mosque was set alight in East Sussex. In Merseyside, the window of a mosque was shot with an air gun while children were inside, and in Greater Manchester, a paving slab was thrown at a window. And in Glasgow, a window was smashed with a metal pole. Data compiled by the British Muslim Trust, the BMT, shows that between July and October, 25 mosques across Britain were targeted in 27 attacks, more than a quarter of which were violent or destructive. Other incidents include graffiti and the asphyxiating of crosses and flags. 3 mosques were targeted repeatedly. The BMT said 40% of incidents, including the use of British and English flags or symbols or slogans, including Christ is King and Jesus is King in Christian nationalist context, reflects how the hard right had attempted to weaponize Christian symbolism and Indianism. It's really important that real Christians of faith call this out and say that this is not how Christianity is supposed to be used, that they do not wish harm upon others. That's not what Christianity is. I'm not even of anywhere near that faith, but that I'm sure that lots of real Christians will be disgusted that it's being used, that their faith is being weaponized here. In January, before the period examined in the data, there were 7 attacks in London, followed by a period of relative calm. Incidents across the country escalated in the summer, from 1 in July to 8 in August, rising to 9 in September, and a further 9 in October, the BMT has said. The BMT was appointed by the government in July to track and respond to anti-Muslim hatred across the UK. Its report, A Summer Division, has been seen by The Guardian. August marks a clear shift, which incidents evolve from single acts of vandalism to coordinated symbolic intimidation and violent attacks, and repeatedly targeting, signalling a sustained increase in both scale and intent, the report says. While some frame this summer's Raise the Colours campaign and the Unite the Kingdom rally as a call for national unity, this briefing confirms that in practice the two coincide with a wave of incidents in which the flag itself has become an instrument of nationalistic intimidation to drive division. Yeah, so again, they're using the flag as a means of trying to weaponize it and basically imply that people of a certain faith or national, or the fact that you may not have been born here or you've come here by a different means that you shouldn't be anywhere near our flag, that you shouldn't be British, that you have no recognition of it and you don't belong here. This is the kind of the language, the rhetoric that they're trying to do, which is blatant racism, is what it is. BMT said that while the data could not establish direct correlation, the temporal correlation between these public mobilizations and the spike in mosque target incidents is striking. It suggests that mainstream visibility of nationalist campaigns help normalise and embolden anti-Muslim behaviour in local contexts. The BMT is calling for UK statutory authorities to develop rapid response and security protocols for mosques and to streamline the application process for security funding, as well as community cohesion education to emphasise mosques' roles as civic anchors. The report says victims of anti-Muslim hate crimes consistently reported limited follow-up from police and online platforms, fueling a perception that anti-Muslim hatred is tolerant or minimised. The BMT chief executive Alika Ahmed said that the evidence from this summer is incontrovertible. Anti-Muslim hate in Britain is rising in both visibility and severity, and mosques are being targeted on a staggering scale. This report must be a wake-up call, and something has changed for the worse, and as a country, we need to put it right. The Department for Community and the Home Office have been approached for comment, and at the time of this, they have not responded to it. But it is extremely concerning to see that this has been happening, that this has been increasing, and unfortunately, with the language that you're constantly hearing from influencers, from politicians, from certain people, from certain outlets as well, it's all stoking this up. It is stoking up this tension, unnecessary tension. They're stirring up the needs of a culture war to drive people against each other. which is wrong. And we should be working together, uniting together for a better world rather than dividing. And they're actually going to touch a bit more on this here with a story from the Times. Actually, we'll get to a bit later on about culture wars specifically, because I will touch more on that there. The next story I've got for you guys here is from the Sky News. And the headline is "Mistaken prison releases could be an opportunity for the Justice Secretary," Harriet Harman says. It's a chance for David Lammy to sort out his department, the Labour peer tells the Electoral Dysfunction podcast. Harriet Harman has said some dumb things about Zach Polanski and specifically the Green Party lately, but I'll put that aside for now. I'm not sure what opportunities can be in what she means by opportunities right off the bat when the first thought comes to mind. But it's people need to be reminded here constantly, time and time again, that the state of our justice system is in the state it is in because of the Conservatives' 14 years. I know people don't like hearing that. I know people get told all the time 14 years of Conservative, time and time again. But I cannot stress that our justice system cannot be fixed in a year or in a couple of months, or it's all in a day's work. It's so much more complicated than that. And it's not. And sometimes the solution, you can't just. There are some cases where you can throw money at the problem and it doesn't fix it as well. We have to remember as well that there have been a lot of rape cases that have not been dealt with. They've taken up to 5.5 years to be dealt with, for example, as well here. There have been many prisoners, unfortunately. There have been far more prisoners have been released under the Conservatives than they have been under Labour. Now, people will strike back and say, well, Regan, that's because the Conservatives were in power for a much longer time. Yes, of course, but the release numbers are much lower. Now, is any much lower under Labour than they are the Conservatives, but obviously it'd be ideal to say that no prisoners are getting released by mistake. However, when you think about the austerity that has been imposed on everything, and that includes our justice system and our prison system, people should not be surprised that this is happening. And it seems like it seems like just the next thing to attack Labour with. This is what it seems more like, rather than actually accepting that this has actually been happening for a while, and the only reason it's happening is because of the Conservatives. And I am prepared to give Labour a chance to try and fix this issue. I'm not going to blame David Lammy and the Labour government for this, because they have been left with such a mess when it comes to our justice system. And I've spoken before Labour came into power about our justice system on multiple videos about the how much it really frustrated me what the damage the Conservatives left with our criminal system. So multiple mistaken prisoner releases could actually be an opportunity for David Lammy, Harriet Harman has said. So speaking to Sky News Electoral Functional podcast, the Labour peer said the released errors are a chance for the Justice Secretary to roll up his sleeve and sort out his department. So it emerged on Wednesday that 2 prisoners were wrongly freed from HMP Walsworth last week. It follows high-profile release of the migrant sex offender Hadi Kisbu from HMP in Chelmsford, which, by the way, he's already gone, he's been deported. Baroness Harman said it has shone a spotlight on the systematic problem which needs to be sorted out. And rather than become a ding-dong between Labour and the Tories, she said, I think, ironically, it's a bit of an opportunity for him, that's David Lammy, to actually be able to roll up his sleeve and insist that the department gets the resources and the focus it needs to sort out this problem, which is not a new problem. So, what is wrong with our prison system? Let's have a listen here from Sky News on this.
4-year-old Algerian sex offender Brahim Kadour Sharif, also released in error from HMP Wandsworth. Outside the gates, we met Yunus, who'd just been released himself, having served 5 months inside.
Seems there are problems in the system.
Yeah, I think there is problem in the system. Yeah, because if that happened in Chelmsford and then 2 days after it's happening here, what do you think? The system is they need to check something. They need help maybe. They need new prison. They need to fix a lot of things because now the world is changed, you know.
The Prison Governors Association highlighted austerity as one of the root causes of the problems.
They said that these mistaken releases are all wrapped up in underinvestment, overcrowding and archaic technology. Some prisons are still using fax machines and relying on pen and paper. The Prison Governors Association were clear. They said the conditions just don't exist to reduce the number of these errors to 0.
It's why the government ordered an urgent prison governors meeting to clamp down on these mistakes, which are infuriating the public and putting the Justice Secretary under enormous pressure.
the rate of release by error is too high. It has to come down. This is a paper-based system that obviously involves human error. We had 800 errors under the last government. This has now gone on for a generation. Our prison system is in crisis.
His reputation and that of the government is on the line.
Well, let me just say how angry and frustrated I am that these mistakes have been made in releasing people. They're intolerable and they shouldn't be made. A lot of it comes from the burden and the strain on the system because of the failures of the last government. But I recognise it's our job to step up and to fix this, and we will.
Labour blame the Conservatives. The Conservatives say this is on Labour's watch.
This is the Conservatives not taking ownership and responsibility for their 14 years. I've said time and time again, this is why you cannot trust the Conservatives. The Conservatives have never apologised for any of the mistakes they have, and here they are again. Rather than taking ownership and responsibility, they're just pointing the finger. Just because Labour are in government now, they're saying, look, it's all Labour's fault. It's not all Labour's fault. This was on the Conservatives, and it's important for people to understand that distinction, regardless of where your political allegiances lie. It's important to understand the context and the facts of why we're in this situation in the first place. And the fact of the matter is that we are in this situation because of austerity, because of the cuts that the Conservatives have done since 2010.
What we have seen now is an explosion in accidental prisoner releases.
It's actually a lot lower under Labour than it has been under the Conservatives, just for reference.
Many of them foreign criminals, many of them sex offenders. This should not be happening. We know that there will always be times when mistakes occur, but the scale at which it is happening is causing real worry.
But these are not just mistakes. In the case of the Algerian sex offender who is still on the run, it took 6 days for the prison service to realise he was missing and alert the police. It is incompetence that puts the public at unnecessary risk.
I wouldn't say it's incompetence. I don't think that's the right word to describe it. Because, again, they're really strained. Again, we have to, like I've always said, to put yourself in the shoes of other people. Think about this, yeah? Think about you're a prison officer or you're a prison admin working in these prisons, yeah? Working on this paperwork. Really important paperwork right now, right? And imagine all of a sudden, yeah, the people and bodies that you had around you to help you with this, with a lot of this stuff, yeah, you get cut back, right? You get paid less, or you have less bodies to help you with the checks and whatnot. That is what's happened over the last 14 years. And if you're somebody who has been working a certain system and then you're being told to do more for less, you're going to get tired, you're going to get exhausted, you're going to get stressed, you're going to make mistakes. And unfortunately, there's been more mistakes before. Not because these people aren't doing their jobs. It's because they're stretched. They're overstretched. The staff are overstretched, and it's really important to emphasize that. Like, there was a story about someone got suspended over. Someone actually got one prison officer got suspended over the whole the Ethiopian who got released. One person, which is nonsense. It wasn't one person. It was a multitude of things. So you can't pin this on one person. This is a systematic failure, and it's been done by austerity. The obvious solution is that money needs to be poured in. Yeah, and also there needs to be a massive transition as soon as possible by this government to get these prisons stop using old fax machines, old paperwork, and start using computers. Get the systems built in, get the computers and systems they need to build in set up so that they can relieve a huge amount of stress and strain on the system. She added the figure shows 262 prisoners were mistakenly released in the last 12 months for March 2025. Is 5 weeks or more or less, bringing out the early, and if we don't even know that is the full extent. Salami is also Deputy Prime Minister under fire for handling the saga. Stood in for PMQs on Wednesday when he refused to answer whether more asylum seekers have been wrongly released since Kibu, and Ethiopian national who was later delayed. So this is David Lammy responds obviously to him not talking about it at Prime Minister's questions as well.
That it is important when updating the House and the country about serious matters like this that you have all of the detail. I was not equipped with all of the detail, and the danger is that you end up misleading the House and the general public. So that is the judgment I took. I think it's the right judgment. We have found out that the release that has caused concern this week was actually before I introduced those checks just a few weeks ago following the release of Kabatu. And the other prisoner was a court mistake, not in fact a prison mistake. But the truth is, I've been in post 2 months. The rate of release by error is too high. It has to come down. That's why I've asked Dame Lynn Owens to look at this, former Deputy Met Commissioner, to review this and come back to me as quickly as she's able to do. And this is a paper-based system that obviously involves human error. We had 800 errors under the last government. This has now gone on for a generation. Our prison system is in crisis, so we have to bear down on this, but we have a mountain to climb.
And this is, you have to, again, like, I know people want to blame the Labour government on this because they have their grievances with Labour, and so do I. But this is something you really cannot pin this on Labour. You really cannot. The end is, as the PMQs was ending, the story broke that the Algerian sex offender had been released in area, and has since emerged that David Lammy was made aware of this overnight on Tuesday. He has defended not revealing known about the incident. Yeah, he didn't have the full details, which he just saw there. He's also been criticised following Kibu's mistaken release. He promised on October 27 that stronger prison checks would be introduced. Smith's handed himself in on Tuesday, while Cabo Chief Du is still on the run here. So this is the last reports on this, and this obviously this story came out obviously on Friday of this recording here, just for reference here. So again, like, it's really important to stress, please don't pin this all on Labour. We have to pin this on the Conservatives. We have to pull this down to austerity. This has played a factor into this, and I really do hope people understand that. Again, I'm not saying I'm not a Labour person, but in this occasion, Labour are not at fault for the crisis that is taking place within our prison system. Yes, they need to get on top of it. They need to get on grip of it, and we will accept that. And I'm prepared to give them a chance to do so, just like on NHS. But we have to remember why it's in the situation it is in the first place. It's really important to emphasise that. And we need to give Labour a chance to do what they need to do to deal with this as well. The next story I've got for you guys is from the BBC. So the headline here is betting firms are scaremongering over the tax rises, says MP. So let me read a bit more into this before I share my thoughts. So it says that the government should not cave to the gambling industry scaremongering over a potential tax rise on online betting, the committee of MPs has said. It says the Treasury Committee said the government should tax online betting games at a rate that reflects the level of harm that they inflict. Earlier this year, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves has suggested taxes on betting firms that could be raised in the budget. Online gambling and gaming now accounts in nearly half of the industry's takings, and bookmakers have argued that increasing taxes could lead to the closure of hundreds of betting shops and the loss of thousands of jobs. This is, I really do consider this scaremongering here about the losses of thousands of jobs. We're talking about an industry here that really does destroy people's lives. There is nothing wrong with people doing a little bit of gambling here and there, but it's so wild, the amount of it that is circulated online as well as in our daily lives. And I do mean daily lives. I mean, we have bookie shops everywhere. We have them literally on advertisements around football games. It really does try to emphasize people on that. Now, there has been improvements, and I will give a tiny bit of credit to the Conservatives. They have clamped down a little bit on this when it comes to the gambling industry, but I think asking the gambling industry, an industry that while it can be fun for some, it can be soul destroying for a lot of people's lives, and even lead to people taking their own lives as a result of losing all their money as well. And I think, the risks are this. It does feel more like a threat of we're going to close loads of things if we end up paying more. And I'm thinking, well, these guys do make huge amounts of money. They do make huge amount of money, and I don't think it's asking too much for the gambling industry to pay a little bit more tax. I think if you were to ask most average people on the street and say to them, would you rather we raise your bills a little bit more, or would you rather us take it from the gambling industry? And I think 90% of the people would say, yeah, we should ask the gambling industry to pay a little bit more. I do think, how much of that I'm not sure, because I'm not in economics in any way, shape or form, but I do think that they can pay a bit more tax. I don't personally have an issue with them paying more tax. I don't want to close down the gambling industry completely, because I do think I know some people are against gambling. I don't want the industry to be clamped down, but I do feel it is not restricted enough. I think there needs to be far more restrictions on it, me personally. That's just a personal opinion there. The report from the Treasury Committee said that while sound gambling was fun and safe, which is true, it rejects the industry's assertion that gambling causes no social ills. This is 100% bollocks. Again, there have been countless stories, not just by ordinary people, but even by celebrities, about how gambling has destroyed their lives. MPs heard that online betting can promote harmful, addictive gambling behaviours that bring no benefits to people's families and communities. The chair of the committee, Dame Meg Hellier, said online betting games were extracting huge amounts of money from people who have been funneled into the most addictive, harmful corners of the industry via their love for sports or the occasional game of bingo. Again, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of it, but too much is too far. However, Granny Hurst, chief executive of the Betting and Gaming Council, the BCG, cited NHS research showed that only 0.4% of adults are the problem gamblers. BGC members contribute 6.8 billion to the economy, generate 4 billion in tax, and support 109,000 jobs, while facing an effective tax rate of up to 8%, she said. Punters winning from gambling are not taxed in the UK, nor is VAT charged on bets. However, the gambling industry pays extra taxes, including a tax of 21% on online casino gambling stakes, a duty of 20% on slots and gaming machines, general betting on duty on sport fixtures of 15%, and a general betting duty on horse racing of 15%. And I think they can pay a little bit more. I don't think it's going to kill their industries. They're still making plenty of money, in my view. In September, Reeves told ITV, "I do think there is a case for gambling firms paying more. They should pay their fair share of taxes, and we will make sure that happens." Nearly a quarter of Labour MPs have signed a petition urging China to hike taxes on gambling companies and use the money to lift benefit restrictions on families of more than 2 children. That's a great way of using it there. Flutter UK and Ireland, whose brands include Paddy Power, Sky Betting and Gaming, Sportsbets and Tombola, said tax hikes on machines and online games could have a significant impact on the industry, jobs and investment. I don't agree with this, with the industry job investments. Do I think it possibly could lead to some of the shops disappearing? Yes. But do I think, do I have a problem with some betting shops disappearing? No, not really. Last month, the co-founders of the Betfred said all 1,287 of its UK shops could disappear on the high street if its chancellor hikes taxes on gambling firms. Betfred are probably going to do this either way, because everything is done online anyway, so it wouldn't be surprised me if betting firms start doing it less on the high street and just online only. Fred Dunn said a new tax on online bets would mean there would be no profit in the business. I don't buy that for 1 second. He said 300 of his shops were currently losing money and claimed a 5% increase on gambling taxes raised that number to 430. In its most recent annual results, Betfred took in nearly 1 billion of revenue but made an operating profit of just $500,000 after a series of write-downs in the assets. Treasury spokesperson said tax policy decisions are made by the Chancellor at physical events. Our consultation on remote gambling focuses on the growth in remote betting websites since 2015, which employs fewer people, has lower costs and is more profitable. I have no problem with less betting shops being on the high street, me personally. I personally don't. Obviously, I don't want to see anyone losing their jobs in any way, shape or form, and I do mean that sincerely. Because at the end of the day, it really does bring home money for somebody out there, and I generally mean that. However, I also want to pull people away from that industry as much as we can. If they can find jobs elsewhere, or if those betting shops become something else that could be more valuable to them, I'm all for that as well. But obviously, the high street is a bit of a different subject because we know that many high streets are struggling to stay open. Lots of businesses, especially in small independent businesses, a lot of them have still not recovered from COVID. Many of them have unfortunately shut up shop, and it's very hard to maintain a business nowadays. So I understand from the business perspective on the high street there. The next story I got for you guys before we take our short break is from The Independent here. And this is mentioned, and it was mentioned in the last article, that Gordon Brown calls for a total abolishment of the two-child benefit cap to tackle the scars of poverty in Britain. Former Labour leader and Chancellor issues a stark warning to the current government. I'm glad that he is saying this. I know that there has been the rumour mill around the Chancellor possibly removing the two-child benefit cap at the budget. This will be a massive positive if it is. This is the one thing that I'm really hoping for at the budget, although I'm not holding my breath on it because I've been let down many times by this Chancellor. I'm in full agreement with Gordon Brown. It will really, really will lift a lot of people out of poverty. Will it completely abolish child poverty? No, but it will be a big step in the right direction. There's a lot of people who really don't understand how beneficial the two-child benefit cap is to a lot of people. There's a lot of people who have a misconception about it, that they see it as people just flogging off the system. Are there people out there flogging off the benefit system and entitlement system? Yeah, there's always going to be people out there. However, the vast majority who generally want to have families, want to raise kids, want to raise kids and bring in new people, have babies, are disencouraged by the cost of living, and the two-child benefit cap is also contributing to that. The child poverty should never be something that should be happening in a country that has so much wealth. It's absolutely insane that that Great Britain, of 4 great nations, actually have an issue when it comes to child poverty. This should not be happening in any way, shape or form, and money should be going towards helping our children in society. I do accept that there is they are looking at an assessment on child poverty as well, but I think if they continue to ignore the two-child benefit cap, it's only going to enrage people like myself and others who really do feel that our next generation of children are being left behind or have already been left behind. So the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown has called for the total abolishment of the two-child benefit cap, putting pressures on ministers to do more to tackle the scars of child poverty in Britain. Speaking at a conference to mark the 60th anniversary of the Child Poverty Action Group, the CPAG, the former Premier and Chancellor shot down proposals to water down the controversial policy, instead calling for its complete removal. Pressure has increased on ministers to abolish the measures in the approach for the upcoming budget and publication of the government's delayed child poverty strategy. Now, I will say this, in the past I have said that if the government weren't willing to abolish the two-child poverty cap, to at least increase the cap to 4 or 5 children or something like that. I have said that in the past on previous videos, but my position has changed because I feel like it's getting to a point now where there's no reason to keep the two-child benefit cap. There's no benefit to it. Campaigners at CPAC said that the policy pulls 109 children into poverty a day. And a day without action, a number of children in poverty in the UK will rise from 4.5 million to 4.7 by the end of this Parliament. The cap introduced under Conservative welfare reforms blocks parents from claiming the child element of universal credit was £292.81 a month or a third or subsequent child born after April 2017. And it is understood that ministers are now considering a partial removal of the cap, which would see it tweaked rather than fully removed. This could be done by increasing the limit to 3 or 4 children, or by introducing a taper rate that would see parents would receive higher entitlements for their first child and less for a subsequent child. Speaking in London, Mr Brown said total abolishment is far preferable for tapering any of its other kind of reform that would not abolish the two-child rule in its entirety. But there's another big reason why we should abolish the two-child rule. We should not have the strain on the legislative books of the House of Commons and in the House of Lords, and this prejudge was introduced into legislation almost 10 years ago. Well, he said the then Tory Chancellor George Osborne had warned that you believe that it was taxpayers that were paying money when they couldn't afford to have children, for other people to have children who were poor parents on benefits who actually having children to get the benefits. He said this was a prejudge that he, Mr Osborne, tried to induct into the minds of the country, but that was in fact a fictional account of Britain. And unfortunately, because for a long period a lot of people were in that mindset because that's what they believed. And still there are still many people, unfortunately, and you see from some polls, while it is slightly more in favour of removing it, there have been polls that have said that people still think that. They think that there are people who are intentionally doing this to get onto benefits. Which, by the way, if you look at the numbers and statistics, it's more minority than a majority. Speaking after the former Prime Minister, Homeless Minister Alistair McGovern credited his work on the tackling child poverty, but said that she would not preempt any decisions to be made announcing in the child poverty strategy. Labour committed a reduction in child poverty in its election manifesto, but has not yet set a target for this reduction. This is the one thing that's really infuriating, not having a reduction or setting out any kind of goal. That's one of the things that really annoys a lot of charities and organisations out there. Mr Brown has also urged ministers to introduce this in the upcoming strategy. He repeated his calls to introduce a higher levy on gambling profits to pay for the measures, and the introducing a higher levy on banks if necessary, pointing to the UK's bank cooperation tax surcharge being reduced from 8 to 3% in 2023. A previous published report by the Institute of Public Policy Research, the IPPR, backed by Mr Brown, suggests reforms to gambling levies could generate the $3.2 billion needed to scrap both the two-child limit and benefit cap. The Resolution Foundation think tank previously estimates that easing the two-child limit so families can receive support for the first 3 children, they would have cost $2.4 billion in 2029-2030 and would lift 280,000 children out of poverty. CPAC Chief Executive Alison Garnham said, "Now more than ever, with child poverty at a record high, we need decisive action from the government, and the first steps must be the full abolishment of the two-child limit. Half measures and compromises will not shift the deal. The policy must be removed in its entirety. A generation of children will grow up cut off from the opportunity." Ahead of Mr Brown's speech, a government spokesperson said its strategy will set out how to tackle the structural root and causes of child poverty. And they added that we are investing £500 million in children development through the rollout of the Best Start family HUDs, extending free school meals, and ensuring the poorest don't go hungry through the holidays through a £1 billion crisis support package. Let me just state this about the free school meals. I've said this before and I've said this again. It's not just about one meal. It's about ensuring, they've said about free breakfast clubs as well, like meals every single day. Guarantee 3 meals a day for every single child. Guarantee it. Guarantee it for every single child. Should not be a conversation. We should not have a debate about this. The cost for it should not be an argument. It should be just put through. Every single child should be guaranteed 3 meals a day. There should be no exceptions. If anyone has a problem with that, then they have a problem with children. Then they have a problem with they don't want children to succeed. No one should be debating this. Every single child should be given everything they need to succeed. That's not a conversation you will win an argument with. Money should not be a factor when it comes to our children succeeding. Right, I'm going to take a little break here to recover my voice because we've gone about 37 minutes long currently at the time of this recording here. I hope you guys enjoyed this funny video here. I haven't actually played this one here, but because it's come from Foil Arms and Hogs YouTube channel, by the way, do check them out. Link for their for this video is in the description. Do subscribe to their channel. They have over 1.2 million subscribers. They do absolutely amazing stuff, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one from them. The headline is "Everything Must Have Protein." Well, what could possibly go wrong here, guys? Hope you enjoy.
The new food product launch. What do we got?
Well, I've got a brand new gluten-free...
Next.
I've got a vegan...
Next. Well, I just took our regular butter and I got the lads to add protein to it.
Protein.
Protein butter? I love it.
I've created protein beans.
Didn't they already have protein in them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, but I put it in a bigger font on the front of the tin.
Genius.
Protein.
I've got a new version of our cream cracker. It's got vitamin C, B12, folic acid.
Oh, that's okay. I guess.
I suppose I could...
Yes?
I mean, I haven't looked into it yet, but...
Go on.
Oh, what the hell? I suppose we could add more protein.
Protein.
That a boy.
And the folic acid is great for pregnant women.
We don't want healthy babies, we want jacked babies.
Protein cake.
You had me at protein.
Potatoes.
I think I know what that is, and I love it.
Quiche.
With added what?
Nothing.
What?
You don't need anything extra, you know? Like, if people just eat a balanced diet, they should be getting all the nutrients that they need.
Really?
An average person just eating
Right.
a standard diet,
Yeah. So wait. What you're saying is we just need more magnesium.
Oh, sorry, no,
Magnesium.
No, I didn't say magnesium.
Magnesium.
We don't need to add anything.
Magnesium.
No, you don't.
Magnesium.
So no, guy, no, hold on, you're doing it again. You're turning it into a fad. Oh, can we just magnesium? This is ridiculous.
Well, you might have.
Oh, and it looks like they've got some merchandise as well, Foil Arms and Hogs as well. Oh, very cool. That's very cool. They've got a hoodie and a shirt there. They've even got a beanie hat there. They've got a beanie hat there as well, looks like. Yeah, so check out on their YouTube channel. Check out more details if they've got any more tours coming up as well. Yeah, give them some love and support. I've just seen there they do have a tour in 2026. They've got as well, and a European tour as well. Copenhagen, Frankfurt, Berlin, Prague, as well as a couple of others. So do check out their stuff, their Foil Arms and Hog, and do check out if you can go to one of their shows. I do recommend it. It'd be a lot of fun. And just while I give those quick plugs, guys, before I carry on, as we've got a couple more stories here. If you guys haven't already, please consider hitting the like button, sharing this across social media. Subscribe if you haven't already. do consider leaving a super chat down below if you want to financially support me. Or another way you can financially support me is by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. You can also do that too. You can also join our Discord community, which is free to do as well. And you can follow me on all my social medias down below as well. I also post content on Rumble and Patreon as well. So if you want to check out additional content, as well as not just here on the home tab where you can find out lots of content, but also on those platforms as well. So thank you very much for all your support, and thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Right, the next story I've got for you guys is an exclusive from the iPaper here. I'm going to take this off just so it doesn't swing on my head here. So this one here is disabled will be hit the hardest by Reeves taxi tax on minicabs. Excuse me. So Labour MP Carl Turner describes the proposed plan as balmy. Let me read a bit more into this before I share my thoughts, guys. So all it says here is that imposing a taxi tax on minicabs and private hire cars will strip disabled, elderly and vulnerable people from their independence and amount to a manifesto breach, the Chancellor has been warned. So Rachel Reeves is said to be looking at imposing 20% of VAT on minicabs and private hire car journeys in her upcoming budget. Taxi firms outside of London do not have to charge VAT currently, but the government is understood to be considering imposing a flat rate to bring more money into the Treasury. Why are we... Here's the thing, right? Now, obviously, it sounds like to me here, I don't know why we're going to be making it more difficult for disabled people to get to A to B. It's tough enough for many people with disabilities to even get on a goddamn train, let alone just to hire a cab. You know, it costs money for them. But even taking aside just the disability people here, you know, if we want to get more people on public transport, this is where you tie into the cost of living here. And when at the moment when it already costs a fortune for people to be able to travel to insert certain aspects, whether it's by train or by bus, even though they're not as expensive as minicabs, these are things that people desperately need when there's times where it's late at night or when they can't get home. They need to get to A to B and they can't have anything. And this is where the cabs and private car hires really do play a vital role. I don't know how many of you have used private car hires or used taxis, but I find them to be invaluable in when you desperately need to get to A to B for whatever reason and you can't rely on public transport. They come there for you. I don't think it's right that they should be paying more. I think, in my personal opinion, I think you pay enough as it is for them, and they have to pay. They obviously have to charge a bit more in order to make up for whatever firm they pay for, also for their salary, and as well as obviously the fuel that they have for their vehicle as well. So all these things take into account when it comes to taking you from A to B, and of course it depends of how far you are going as well. And I and again, it's like, if you don't want to, and this is where someone can come back and hit at me, rightfully say, well, if you don't want tax here, where are you going to tax here? You got to somewhere money's got to be raised, and we keep turning back to the wealthiest in society, asking the wealthiest to pay a bit more, asking the biggest of businesses to pay their fair share of tax a little bit more, asking them to pay a bit more. The biggest businesses, the people with the most wealth, the people with the most accommodation, most properties, like all those people who have vast amounts of wealth, those are the ones we should be looking at ways that we can get more money out of them, rather than looking at, again, I just feel like this is a niche tax that's not necessary in my view. Critics argued that this would unfairly penalise disabled people and carers who rely on specific private car hires to get around. Carl Turner, Labour MP for Kingston upon Hull East, has written to the Chancellor asking her to drop her proposal ahead of the budget. He is understood. He told the iPaper that the proposed tax was possibly more balmy than the balmy pastry tax the Tories dreamed up in the Tory Lib Dem coalition. The pastry tax was a controversial proposal that would have seen VAT slapped on all hot takeaway food. Yeah, that was outrageous idea. The Tory Chancellor George Osborne was forced to scrap the policy after considerable backlash. Yeah, like here's the thing, like I'll just say on that before we carry on that I'm all for in trying to encourage more people to eat more green. But there is a way to. I don't know if that was the way to do it. and kind of just putting a tax on takeaway food, yeah, it's just kind of a bit of a slap in the face. And especially if green foods, if encouraging more people to eat more green, if it's not cheap enough, if it's still expensive, you're not helping people. All you're doing is pissing people off. You need to do it by the ways of prices. I don't think just by going after the takeaways is going to be the solution. I do feel that there needs to be something needs to be done when we're talking about people when it comes to diet and all that kind of stuff. I do accept that. So charities including the Disability Rights UK and Careers Trust have also urged the Chancellor not to go ahead. Stephen Brooks of Disability Rights UK said the move would amount to raising money on the backs of the most vulnerable. For many disabled people, private car hire are not just a luxury, they are an essential. They provide vital means of transport where public opinions are inaccessible or unreliable. Yep. The additional charge could also strain health budgets. Yep. Figures from the 2021 NHS England report shows non-emergency patient transport services, the NEPTS, which offers transport for outpatients receiving hospital care, such as dialysis, providing more than 11 million journeys each year. This costs around 460 million annually, which trusts often use as private hire vehicles, PHVs and taxis. In his letter to Reeves, Turner warned that levy would be a clear breach of our party's manifesto commitment not to raise VAT, as well as posing a threat to jobs. And he says the last thing taxi drivers need is the tax hikes that will force up fares, drive down demand, and threaten their livelihoods, Turner told the iPaper. And the higher fares will hit vulnerable people particularly hard. Elderly, disabled people, parents with kids who have complex needs, and women trying to get home safely at night. So we'll be hurt by this. And this will also discourage people from going out clubbing and whatnot, contributing to the nighttime economy as well. Because if it costs more for people to get home, it's going to mean that less likely people are going to go out as well if it costs them even more as well. So you're also damaging the night economy. Policy was the daftest idea I've ever heard because it's more damaging to the most vulnerable, he added, accusing Treasury boffins of coming up with policies and selling them to ministers as brilliant thinking when they are not. In a letter he had that almost 300,000 people work as private hire vehicle drivers who already struggle making ends meet. There you go, as I already said, they're struggling. And warned that the prospect of VAT increases has sparked fears that it will cost thousands in their livelihoods. The taxi tax would amount to a new tax on working people, which is precisely what our manifesto pledged to avoid, he added. His warning comes as a polling of 200,000 people commissioned by the Stop the Taxi Tax campaign revealed 2/3, 67% of carers and people with mobility issues use a minicab for medical appointments in the past year. Nearly 3/4 of voters, 74%, and 85% of carers are concerned that fare increases will make it harder to attend vital appointments. The Treasury spokesperson said, "We take this issue very seriously and recognise its complexity. The government is reviewing feedback from a consultation on the issue and we will publish our details of a response shortly," the spokesperson added there. So at least they acknowledge that there are complexities to design this. But yeah, I hope they ditch this idea. I hope we don't hear this in the budget. And if we don't hear this in the budget, it means that the Chancellor did grow a pair and realise maybe this wasn't a very good idea. Let's hope it's nothing more than an idea that they've put out there, to a field idea and put out there to see how it was, and it's just been shot down. And that we don't hear about this in the budget, because if we do, there will be I will be will be concerned for sure. And just a reminder, the budget is on Wednesday the 26th as well, so it'll probably be after Prime Minister's questions most likely. The next story I got for you guys is from The Times. So Britons are becoming increasingly divided over culture wars. A survey finds that young people are also losing a sense of pride in the UK, and that a majority of people believe life was better in the past. This kind of comes back to the story there by The Guardian, similar to The Guardian here. So let's read a bit more into this. So British people feel the nation is more divided than ever, and the majority say they do not feel proud of their country, the research has found. So a study by the Policy Institute at King's College London also reveals a country where tensions around immigration are rising. People are uneasy with the pace of cultural change and increasing nostalgic for the past. Its findings were based on representatives of a survey of more than 4,000 people over the age of 16. Part of a long-term research program into culture wars, the study also found that attitudes towards transgender rights have hardened, and there is a growing rejection of the concept of being woke. I hate that bloody term. Separately, the survey discloses that tensions over Brexit have eased, and divisions over climate change are now worse. I'm not so sure about the climate change. I've seen different polls that say differently there. The Brexit one, I think a lot more people are kind of just like not to talk about it rather than debate about it now. I think because it's been like more than, it's nearly, what's it been? It's been 9 years since the vote was made. Over 9 years since the vote was made. I generally think that Brexit is why a lot of people have kind of changed their opinions or tried not to talk about it with others. Those who did vote for it don't want to bring it up there. In terms of the transgender right, I don't know why people have. There's been some polling that suggests some people have a difference of views that feel that transgender rights they're getting too many rights, and I don't understand why we're getting that. I don't understand where this is coming from. I don't understand why people have a problem with trans people having rights overall. Like what's the difference between the rights that ordinary people have and trans people have? Why do we have a problem with giving them the same rights as us? Like, it's a simple case of, so you don't believe in equality, so you're actually racist because you don't want to give, just because they don't find themselves physically attracted to the opposite sex, you think there's something wrong with them. That's literally racist. They're human beings just like you and I. It's a pure racism, transphobic, or as they call it. Like, it is a form of racism, I feel. If you have a problem with transgender people and their rights, they should have the same rights as everyone else, and that's all it is. Like, and people are just trying to make it worse than ever. As for the climate change divisions over the climate change, I don't agree with that. There's been lots of polling that have suggested that a lot of UK reform Russia voters are still in favour of climate change, despite the fact that the party is against it. And this is the same actually with the Conservatives, despite the fact Kemi Badenoch is against net zero now. Professor Bobby Duffy, Director of Policy Institute at KLC, said the study shows a frightening increase in the sense of national division and decline in the UK. He said, we've seen a steep rise in the belief that the UK is divided, that culture wars are real, and that things were better in the past. The culture wars has been stirred up by influencers, YouTubers, people on the far right, certain politicians, and certain media outlets have been stirred. This has been something. Culture wars has been something that has been manufactured. It's not actually something. It's been manufactured into a reality, and the reason why it's been manufactured is ideally to turn us against each other, rather than blaming our problems on the wealthiest in society who are influencing our politicians to make us all worse off. That's a more fundamental point there. We've lived through an increasingly divisive period around the EU referendum and its aftermath, where there was a stark opposition and real tension between those who identify with the Leave and Remain sides of the argument. This has died down. It's a steep fall in the tension that people see between Leavers and Remainers today. Yeah, because time has passed on from it. But rather than leading to a sense of greater national connection, the division has morphed into party, political or other splits, with attitudes to immigration and speed of culture change more generally at the heart of them. One thing, yeah, and I agree with that actually, because especially a lot of people got into politics after Brexit to try and understand politics a lot better. And when they see party political lines, and that's where kind of a lot of that tension has come. It's there's a lot of people, I would say ordinary people, don't like for instance, I cannot understand the life of me why people vote Conservative and Reform. In particular, the Conservatives are a lot worse than Reform in my view, because I feel like that the Conservatives left us in such a mess after 14 years, and yet loads and loads of people still think that they're good for the country. And I'm just like I just feel like a lot of those people just have their heads in the sand and just don't realise how many lives have been destroyed, how many people have died as a result of political decisions that they have made. Political decisions that they have made have led to deaths of people. Never mind COVID, I meant policy decisions. So many things are worse off as a result of their austerity, and still people still vote for them. That for me is one of the most shameful things about I feel about people who still feel that their trust is with the Conservatives. According to the results of the survey, 84% of people say that the country feels divided, up from 79% 2 years ago and 74% 5 years ago. Those who believe the nation is divided by culture or specifically have risen by even a greater extent from 46% in 2020 to 67% today. Attitudes to transgender rights have shifted. A number of people saying they have gone too far, more than doubled since 2020, from 17% to 39%. So this is still in the below. According to them, it's still in the low mark there. So most people still believe in their rights. But what does this mean by going too far? Like, I don't understand this. I need someone to. I generally, a part of me wants to sit down with somebody whose position has changed on this to understand, what do you mean by their rights have gone too far? This is a general question. What do you mean by transgender rights have gone too far? Because I'm generally trying to understand that, and I just don't. Similarly, many people have turned against the idea of being woke as awareness of the term have grown. 48% of the public now consider it to be an insult, compared with 24% in 2020. Meanwhile, 50% said the culture in Britain was changing too fast, compared with 35% 5 years ago. Just under 48% said they would like their country the way it used to be. What does that mean? Like, what do you mean by, again, you need to be specific here. Like, what specifically you mean used to be? In comparison, 35% 5 years ago and 28% in 2020. You noted in the study that nostalgia has risen across every age group from young to old. Another significant finding was a drop in the number of people who said they feel proud of their country, which has fallen from 56% to 46% in the past 5 years. Yep, many people feel that, including myself. The proposition of people expressing national pride has declined across a range of groups, the report said. Lowest levels are among 16 to 24-year-olds at 29% and ethnic minorities at 38%. Yep, that doesn't surprise me. Especially when you see the older generation a lot better off than the younger generation. That's how a lot of people are feeling that. Perceived tensions between immigrants and people born in the UK has risen over the past 2 years after previously being in decline. It increased from 74% who felt that there was a tension in 2023 and 86% today here. Looks like somebody there who is... oh, who's that name? I forgot his name now. I met him. The Brexit guy. God. I never got a photo with him as well. Shameful. On a more positive note, divisions around Brexit have apparently eased. 52% said they felt there was tension between the tensions between Remainers and Leavers, compared with 58% in 2023 and 78% in 2020. Perceived tensions between supporters in different political parties have risen slightly from 64% to 68% since 2023, although this figure is still down on the 75% recorded in 2020. Now, the public are most likely to say that there is a great divide between climate change skeptics and believers, with 64% taking this view compared with 52% who think the bigger gap is between Leavers and Remainers. The survey was conducted by Ipsos UK, who carried out an online interview and of a representative sample of people over 16 across the UK between August 21st and 27 this year. Interesting numbers. I don't buy into everything that it has said, but I do think it was some fascinating numbers, to say the least, there from the Times there. I will say, to do, like I always say with polls and surveys, do take it with a pinch of salt, because it's obviously what some people's thoughts and feelings are as of right now. Not to always stress that it means that it's going to be like that the following week or the following day as well. Yeah, there is definitely a sense that I do feel dark forces are driving us, dividing us rather than uniting us. That's how I feel about what's happening in the real world. I generally feel that people are trying to divide us rather than us working together for a better future, and that's the one thing that really saddens me the most, is that we should be working together for the benefit of all of us. One thing that does unite all of us is that we all want people's lives to get better. The problem is that we have a difference of opinions of how we all want to get there. There are actually some really nasty people out there who all wants to see us worse off as well, unfortunately, which is a terrible thing. Which is a terrible, nasty mindset, I would say. But people are born and raised to think a certain way as well. So the last story I've got for you guys is a Nigel Farage one. Sorry, I had to get one of these stories on you guys, unfortunately, but here it is here from Byline Times. Nigel Farage's chosen reform mayoral candidate suggested black Britons can't be English. The party's candidate mayor for Doncaster claimed that being English requires an Anglo-Saxon language and attacked free world cultures in now deleted post. Yeah, so this is I wonder how Labour and other political parties feel about somebody who says these kind of narratives, and this is just racist. Why he says black Britons can't be English? What on God's green earth gives him this kind of thought? Clearly, this person isn't anything but English. Anything that represents the real British values or British, what it means to be British, or even what it means to be English. Is people like that really do turn my stomach to say such nasty things. And and just think about this for a second, okay? Before we go into this, guys. Yeah, just think about this for a second. Yeah, how just put yourself in the shoes of a black person, and they see this story. Yeah, a black person who has been born in England, raised in England, proud to be English, who has the flag, goes to football games with the England shirt, with their kids and whatnot. You know, works hard, contributes to the economy. You know, a fine, upstanding citizen, and then this so-called politician, this candidate for mayor of Doncaster from Reform Russia, is telling them that you can't be English. Just let that marinate in your mind. It's just insane. You know, this is not acceptable. Now, yes, you can argue that the posts are deleted, but it doesn't change the fact that he stated them. So let's read more into this, you guys. So, Reform's UK's or Reform Russia's candidate for mayor in Doncaster this May have been accused of making openly racist comments following the train stabbing over the weekend. In post on Sunday responding to Sunday's mass attack on Doncaster to London's King's Cross train, Reform councillor Alexander Jones explicitly attributed crimes to individuals who were not English and instead black or of Caribbean descent, despite alleged killer being British. This is blatant racism. Yeah, this is a case of... I've said this regarding the attack in the Epping Hotel incident, where the asylum seeker there, who made sexual of touching somebody and whatnot, and faced, and rightfully so, got deported and faced a prison and deportation for it, right? And straight away the assumption from people is that everyone was the same, which is a purely racist mindset to make, to assume that every single person who comes into the country is of that descent. And they argue that we don't know who they are and whatnot. You're right, we don't know who they are, but you don't know about every single person. Do you know about every single person that lives in your town? Do you know about every single person that wherever you go in the UK or where you go on holiday? Do you know about every single person that you walk past? No, you don't. You don't know about every single person. You don't. You're making assumptions, and you shouldn't be making assumptions about something that you don't understand. That's my for people like this, and then when this is the same application that's been applied to black people here, the same application in saying that because the knife wielder was a black person, the assumption is that all of them are a threat to us. This is the assumption, or the alleged signification of what they're trying to do here. It's trying to point this in the direction of saying that this is black people's fault somehow, which, by the way, has nothing to do with black people. This is an individual who did a terrible, disgusting individual who did this attack, who clearly has issues, and did a vile, killed people. And thank God for the people who stopped him from harming more people. This is not what every single black person is like. Like, I can't believe I actually have to say that. But if this is your position, the problem isn't black people. The problem isn't our country. The problem isn't culturals. The problem is you not getting out more. That's the problem. So let's read exactly what he says in his post here, or tweet. He says, the recent stabbing incident on the train from Doncaster to London King's Cross has understandably further raised significant concerns. Reports suggest that the individual involved are not English, but black and of Caribbean descent. He said reports suggest there, prompting again discussions about the impact of mass migration on public safety. While diversity is often celebrated for its contributions to society, challenges around community cohesion are becoming increasingly apparent. If our goal is to foster a safe society, we must critically and immensely evaluate our immigration policy and consider the implementations of welcoming large number of individuals from our third world countries into our land. This is implying that anybody who comes in is a problem, again, which is racist. Yeah, it's just silly. Oh, he's got more here. When a commentator noted the fact, Carl Jones repeated that being English is tied to racial language and Anglo-Saxon heritage, appearing to imply that people of colour born in Britain cannot be English. So, here it is. So, being English transcends mere citizenship. It encompasses a rich tapestry of a language, culture, and traditions back to 927 AD, when tribes of Angles, Saxons, and Jewels formed together to create the country of England. So, British maybe, but not English. I don't know what you're trying to play here, but this is not a fucking joke. Like, it's just not. This is just disgusting. The remarks in a now deleted Facebook post from Carl Jones, who represents Ethiope and Kirk Sandell in the Yorkshire Borough. He was the candidate fested by Reform League leader Nigel Farage, MP as the next city's mayor, who just missed out on the top job to Labour earlier this year. He almost got the job. Introducing Carl Jones as Reform Doncaster mayoral candidate in March, Farage said, Alexander understands the challenges faced by local people having lived here all his life. He's young, energetic, and exactly what's needed to get Doncaster back on track, adding in a separate interview that Reform Russia would bring entrepreneurial flair and spirit to the Yorkshire city. While Jones lost out on the mayoralty, he was elected as a councillor, and Reform went on to win control of the city council. A Doncaster Labour spokesperson told Byline Times, in a moment of national shock following the horrific attack, a former Doncaster mayoral candidate for Reform Russia chose to spread misinformation in an attempt to stoke racial hatred and division. Sadly, this is the behaviour that we are coming to expect from Reform Russia. The deeply offensive and discriminating remarks, in the words of one resident, used the tragedy to promote racist generalisations about immigration and the so-called third world cultures by a local told Byline Times. One resident told this outlet the rhetoric was outrageous, inflammatory, and wholly incompatible with public office. It promotes racial division, undermines community cohesion, and perpetrates harmful stereotypes. It is vital that such racism from the electoral representative is called out and held to account. Doncaster resident Andy, who wanted to remain anonymous for fear of retaliation, said, I find these comments deeply unacceptable, and because they stoke division and undermine the sense of unity in our city, a statement like this make valued members of our community, many of whom were born here and are proud British citizens, feel targeted and unwelcome. That is not what Doncaster stands for. Shortly after Byline Times contacted Reform HQ with the story, Jones posted on Facebook saying that his Sunday's post was open to interpretations. Of course it was, because that's what they normally do. And he apologised for any offence caused. No, you've made your points very clear, Alexander. You have a problem with black people. Maybe we should send this to Femi, see what he says. But the Doncaster African Caribbean Sports Group wrote in his comments suggested racism is normalised in the city of Doncaster. There's an urgent need to address systematic racism, otherwise distasteful and is undermining community cohesion. Adding that Doncaster was one people, one city, one love. Well, it doesn't change the fact that he's put those faults out there. Those are his faults at the end of the day. Reform UK and Alexander Jones were contacted for comment but did not respond directly. Nigel Farage has himself been accused of racism. In 2014, Farage described himself feeling uncomfortable on a train when he didn't hear English being spoken and claimed he wouldn't want Romanians as neighbours due to their supported criminality. This is racism right there. You're implying that all Romanians are criminality, which is bollocks. There are lots of good Romanians living in the UK as well as living in their country, and to assume that everyone is criminality is ridiculous. Again, this is making an assumption that because of one person of a certain nationality or a certain skin colour or certain religious background is that everyone is the same, which is not true. The Reform leader has also defended Enoch Powell's infamous River of Blood speech, saying Powell was right in many ways in January. This outlet revealed that Nigel Farage was pictured with far-right activists who posted pride swastikas in racism rants online. In September, the leader of Britain's foremost anti-racism campaign group, Hope Not Hate, told Byline Times that Farage party is now a significantly bigger far-right threat to the UK than the previous generations of explicit racist parties like the British National Party. Yeah. Here. And here it is, the comments in full here. I'm just going to pause it here. I've already said what it is, but here you can hear it here of what he stated there. And I'm going to send this to one or two YouTubers so that they're aware of this and they can respond accordingly, because I think it's really, really important. I wouldn't be surprised if Reform UK Exposed on Twitter has already covered this as well. But it's a reminder of how dangerous Reform Russia would be if they would become government. That you would have people like that representing us, representing Britain. And I don't think I would want someone like that with those kind of views representing us in any way, shape or form. And I hope you guys agree with me that we need to call people out like that. And those kind of people must be nowhere near any kinds of power, let alone government, MP, minister, councillor, mayoral, whatever political position. People like that shouldn't be anywhere near any form of power. Those kind of mindsets need to be kept far, far away from our politics. So what do you guys make of the stories that we covered today? We covered quite a few range of different stories. Let me know your thoughts and more down in the comment section below, what you guys thought of some of those stories there. If you've come to the end of, if you've watched from the start to the finish, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. I was supposed to be going an hour, but I ended up going an extra 10 minutes long, but that's fine as well. Please hit the like button, share this across social media. Do consider subscribing. Do consider becoming a YouTube member as well, which financially supports me and the work that I do here on this channel. If you can do that, it'd be greatly appreciated. If you want additional content, you can also find more on the homepage as well if you want to have a look at some other stuff there. Check out Rumble and the Patreon as well. There's free content on those web pages, additional content if you guys want to check out stuff on there as well. And once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.